You know, the saying that what you do in the darkness will always come out in the light is why Urban Meyer got fired. You reap what you sow.
Trevor Lawrence also does not look to me like he's processing the information very quickly yet.
I'm not saying the Jags are alive. I'm simply saying they are not quite totally dead.
Patterson's kick is up. The field goal is good! The Jaguars have won it! They have come back from 27-0 to win the game and move on! How good is that?
Don't call it a comeback.
Hey, the Jags are back, baby, from worst to first.
Duval. I don't know which is right.
Nah, the first one was right. I heard it enough. Hey, plus, we're going to have another entire offseason dedicated to this man, the GOAT, Tom Brady, and should the NBA fix the dunk contest? From Wondery, I'm Ryan Shazier.
And I'm Dave Dameshek.
And this is Don't Call It a Comeback.
Don't call it a comeback. I've been waiting on this moment my whole life. Can't call it a comeback. Everybody to your feet, make arenas rise. Yeah, I'm saying from the left to right, we get it on tonight. We do it all, but we don't back down. Just give me one shot, one chance, I'ma take it. Fixing up the game, but these records I keep on breaking.
Shek, let's get into this Jags comeback. Not just the Chargers game, but the entire franchise.
All right, 5-0. Since joining the league in 95, the Jags have mostly been cellar dwellers. Even when things have actually gone right in the regular season, they've typically collapsed come playoff time. Remember, the Jags were up 10 on the Pats in the fourth quarter of the AFC title game before they got Brady that missed their best shot at the Super Bowl?
This Jacksonville team goes through 3 postseason games, never commits a turnover, had a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter.
Blake Bortles is the first time they've lost all year without throwing an interception. And the only team they lose to is New England.
After being just a few plays away from the Super Bowl, the Jags finished in last place in the AFC South for 4 straight seasons. But after a 1-15 year in 2020, the Jags found the QB to mount a franchise comeback.
The Jacksonville Jaguars select Trevor Lawrence, quarterback, Clemson.
In 21, they hired Urban Meyer to help develop Lawrence and create a winning culture. But that's not how it went down.
He thought he could do what he wanted with James Robinson, a great running back. He thought he could do whatever he wanted any time. And in the end, ultimately, Shad Khan said, no, you can't.
Don't know if you heard, but Meyer was released after starting the year 2-11. He lost the trust of the team, and he was caught on camera getting too close with a young lady who wasn't his wife. Shazier, you've had some good experiences with Coach Meyer in college. Why wasn't he a good fit in the NFL?
You know, Coach Meyer's a great coach, and I don't like how people have been talking bad about him lately. But one thing that he does do is a good job of managing young men, college-age men. But, you can't manage them the same way when in the NFL.
All right. Well, either way, with Herb out, the team was in a tailspin. And even the supposed savior, Trevor Lawrence, looked like he might be another Jags bust.
And by the end of his first season, you are not able to evaluate him. That's how bad it was in Jacksonville with Urban Meyer and beyond. What a total, complete failure.
Owner Shad Khan was tired of the losing and wanted to turn things around, so he hired former Super Bowl winning coach Doug Peterson and spent big in free agency, but most of the media wasn't buying a Jags turnaround this year. This season, the Jags started out 2-6. The fans more or less resigned themselves to another disappointing season in Duval. They needed everything to go right to have a shot at the playoffs, and guess what? They did. The Jags got hot, mounting comebacks against the Raiders and the Ravens and the Cowboys.
Picked up by Rayshon Jenkins. He's running it back along the right sideline. That is going to be a touchdown. The Jags are going to win it on a Rayshon Jenkins pick six. Are you kidding me? How good is that?
With the Titans dropping 6 games in a row, the stakes were set for a win-and-get-in showdown between the AFC South rivals and Jacksonville in the final game of the year.
And they've done it. Jaguars have won the AFC South. And they'll go into the postseason having won 5 straight.
And just like that, the Jags were division champions for the second time in over 20 years. And to the victors go the spoils, specifically a home playoff game against the Chargers, there. Trevor Lawrence threw 4 first-half interceptions, putting the Jags in a 27-0 hole. So good season, something to build on. We'll see you next September, right, Shazier? Did you have any faith that the Jags could turn it around in the second half of 22?
I'm not going to lie. I literally just started having the game in the background as background noise. So I did not think they was going to turn this one around.
But guess what? The comeback Cats, if in fact that's what we're going to call them, I don't know. We can maybe punch up that nickname. We'll do that later. They stormed all the way back, and as time expired, they kicked the game-winning field goal and completed the third biggest comeback in playoff history.
This one goes down as one of the greatest, greatest victories I've ever had. 1, 2, 3.
All right, for more on this Jags mighty comeback last weekend and the remarkable franchise turnaround from worst to first this year, we've got a Jacksonville legend with us, one half of the Rams' great radio team, and the self-proclaimed owner of the stadiums in both Indy and Pittsburgh for all of his big-time performances in those joints. It's our old pal, Maurice Jones-Drew. What's the poop, fella?
Hey, Shek, listen, Ryan, don't worry about me owning Heinz Field. You weren't playing around those times. But I did, allow the Jags to come back later in 2017 to kind of visit, my second home up north. So it's good to see you, Shek. My goodness, it's been so long, man.
What a pleasure, Maurice.
So the thing is, I when we have guests join the show, I just allow them to talk, allow them to say what they want to say, and then I have to clear these things up. So unfortunately, there's a player on that team in 2017 that got hurt, and if that player didn't get hurt, you guys would not have made it as far as you guys made it. So that is my home, and you guys got lucky in the playoffs. But it's cool, But we're gonna talk about this comeback at halftime. So, and one thing I want to say is, let's talk about this comeback at halftime.
It's halftime. The Chargers are up 27-7. The most Charger thing to do is allow the Jags back in the game in the second half, and they went on a last-second field goal.
So you call this comeback victory at halftime, man. This is which is crazy to me. How did you know that the Jags were going to be able to turn things around in the second half, especially by a field goal?
Okay, well, Ryan, Shek, I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. It was a couple weeks before that. I was in Buffalo doing a Saturday game, and it started snowing. It was like 20 degrees, and I left there. I went to Green Bay. It was -4. Left there, went to Pittsburgh, and that's when that Arctic blast hit, and it was like -27. And on air, I said to the football gods, whatever I've done, I'll take the lashings for the Jags to at least get one victory in the playoffs. So, no matter what happened in those playoffs, I knew that the Jags were going to find a way to come back. I didn't listen. In all honesty, I was just getting ragged by a bunch of people at work, and I was like, listen, man, it's the Chargers. Shek, we've always talked about this. They're going to charge. I mean, this has been going on, I don't know, since the 90s, I feel like. And so they get up big, but they tend to play tight. They couldn't run the football. And so I knew Trevor Lawrence couldn't play as bad as he could in the second half as he did in the first half. So they had a chance. And really, it was the first score going into half that kind of gave them that opportunity. And, man, it was just an onslaught just kind of came out. And, man, what a job they did. I was just throwing, paint at the ceiling or paint at the wall, and it stuck just on that one.
Hey,
but those are always good.
But you said by a field goal, though. Like, you even called it. You was like, they're going to win by a field goal. And then it's like everything you said happened.
I was in studio in the green room screaming because I was like, it's gonna happen. And our producer Wirtz was there, Chris Rose, the host of the Game Day Final Show, was there, and they were all hating. It was other people there hating, talking about, we're not gonna talk about the Jags. But look, it was just something I threw at the wall, man. I can't act as if I was looked into a crystal ball or anything like that. To be honest, I actually called the Bengals-Ravens score too. I said 24-17, and then or 23-17 is what I said, and they went 24-17. But then I said the Cowboys were going to lose to the Bucs. So, you win some, you lose some.
Maurice, don't listen. I think to the victor go the spoils here. Don't pull back the curtain and say that you also picked the Bucs to rally there. Make it like, yeah, I'm a seer. Everybody should pay attention to me and only me. But all right, let's get in the Wayback Machine here, or at least a year ago machine. How bad? I mean, it was pretty clear from the outside looking in that things were not going great with the Urban Meyer experience there. But exactly how dark was it? Because this is a wild turnaround from year to year, from Herb with all the hype to Doug Peterson, who kind of got left on the side of the road by the Eagles not too long after he won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, Shek, it was toxic, man. From my understanding, I wasn't really around. From my understanding, there's a lot of rules being broken. Obviously, you saw them get fined a bunch. There wasn't a lot of coaching. It was more yelling and talking down to players. And look, at the end of the day, we know winning cures it all. And they went on a losing streak there where I think they lost, 14 games or something crazy straight. Urban Meyer's not used to losing. And so he started to turn on some of his coaches, and you're starting to hearing the rumors come out. And it was too much for him. He's a college coach. He used to stay in college. He came to the pros where, and I personally believe this, that, in the NFL, you get 1 to 2 first-round picks. In college, you could have 15, right? And you don't get the spoils of having the top recruiting class over and over and over again to replenish guys that leave. And you actually have to coach. And I'm not saying that Urban didn't coach, but Urban was a CEO. He overlooked everything, right? His job was to manage and put things in place, and it just didn't work out for him. Where Doug Peterson came in with answers, right? If you have a first-round pick, a number 1 overall pick at quarterback, you got to give him resources, guys that he can lean on. So if you look at it, he has an OC, he has a quarterback coach. They put an older veteran guy in there, and C.J. Beathard, who ran a similar system. You have Doug Peterson, who played in the NFL, coach, won a Super Bowl. So he has a plethora of guys who can give him that knowledge when something doesn't go right or someone played in a bad situation. And they've done an awesome job with him. Then on top of that, Doug Peterson is a play caller. I mean, he won a Super Bowl with Nick Foles, right? So you know that he has the ability to put guys in space, and they added talent around him. And I thought this offseason was huge. Now, from worst to first, I mean, a lot of things have to happen, right? When you talk about the Colts and Matt Ryan, that doesn't work out. The Houston Texans, they're the Texans. And then the Tennessee Titans trade away A.J. Brown, which I thought was the biggest move for the Jags and to kind of make that turn, was that you don't have to see A.J. Brown. Now you can focus everything on Derrick Henry. And as great of a coach as Mike Vrabel is, if you don't have A.J. Brown out there winning one-on-ones and double coverage, it makes it tougher. And so I think Derrick Henry finally saw that, and the Jags were able to make a great push. And then you got the Chargers game where the Chargers jump out on them and they're doing all this great stuff. But the epitome, that game was kind of the epitome of their season, right? Where they went 2-6, and then they went 6 and I want to say 7-2 or something like that, whatever the last record was. But
that adds up,
they turned their season around in the second half. And just like that game, they played terrible in the first half. In the second half, they turn it around. Now, they're going against the Kansas City Chiefs. And Shek, as you know, the Chiefs are my 4th favorite team in the National Football League. That's tough to deal with, man. You can't turn the ball over like that and expect to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. So
hold up, 4th. Like you can't. I had this conversation with my son the other day. You can't have 4 favorite things. You can't have 4 favorite things.
So listen, this is part of it. You were blessed and fortunate enough to play with one franchise, right? So number 1 is always going to be the team that paid me the most. That's the Jacksonville Jaguars. Yeah. Always. Okay. Right. Number 2 is going to be the Los Angeles Rams because they pay me currently and they got me a Super Bowl ring.
Yep.
Number 3 is the Las Vegas, we call it Los Oakland Raiders, because they gave me a quick stint back home. And then the Chiefs, and then number 5 is the Miami, because who doesn't love Miami, right? So I always try to root for the teams that you get a winner in the Chiefs, great city in Miami. And I love Pittsburgh too. Pittsburgh is in the top 10.
And it's 32 teams. You told top 10. Come on.
Yeah, man. Shek, you know how this goes.
No,
right?
I don't know how this goes. And the difference between Shazier's child and you is that you're a grown man. You can't root for more. I mean, in the same division, I like the Chiefs and the Raiders. I mean, that's not
the
allowed.
Raiders paid me, man. I got it. Once a Raider, always a Raider. The Chiefs are just, Eric Bieniemy, Patrick. That's my homeboy.
I get
there's just so much going on.
All right, now it's his homeboy too. Okay.
Don't call it a comeback.
Hey, besides Doug Peterson, who turned this franchise around relatively quickly, when the Jags were 2-6, like what was the mood of the locker room? Do you feel like this team was close to panicking?
I think that was the difference, right? Well, before, with other coaches, kind of in the past, they would probably panic or shut it down. Doug Peterson, they just made some crucial corrections, right? They simplified the offensive playbook. They run the same passing concept, just out of different formations. If you watch that Chargers game, you're going to see 2 or 3 different guys catch the same route over and over and over again, right? So they simplified it for their young quarterback. They simplified it for their offensive line. And they were allowed them to play faster. Defensively, they moved some guys around a little bit. And they just made some slight adjustments. And kudos to that locker room for staying together and finding a way to kind of pull some wins out late in the year. I mean, you beat the Baltimore Ravens at home. You beat the Las Vegas Raiders at home. You found some ways to win some tough games that put you in a situation where you can run. And then they ran off like 6 straight at this point. So they've done a great job of finding a way to believe. And I think Doug Peterson, he keeps it light. He keeps it fun. And yet they're still business-like, right? And so it's really, that's on coaching. I mean, again, I can say the same thing about the Pittsburgh Steelers. Najee Harris is a good friend of mine. And when I went up to Pittsburgh in that Arctic blast or whatever they called it, I asked him the same question. I said, how did you guys keep it together? You guys were 2-7 or whatever it was. Like, it was easy to fall apart. And he said, he's like, Mike T, all he told him, he said, look, one game at a time. We'll fix it. One game at a time. I mean, you go on a run. You beat Baltimore. You beat Cleveland. You beat all these teams down the stretch that you have to beat. You beat the Vegas Raiders. You beat all these teams in must-win games, like Shek likes to call them, and you find a way. And so I think there's different ways. It's different. There's a million ways to skin a cat. But the biggest thing is just keeping the belief in the locker room up and guys excited to go out there and play. And that's what the Jags have been able to do down the stretch.
Is that, you almost sucked me and Shazier into a conversation about the Steelers, and that would not be difficult to do, Maurice. But let's keep our eye on these. Actually, let's go 30,000-foot view about what's worked in the NFL this year. You touched on it. It's funny, you would think at the NFL level, X's and O's and how complicated you can get and the play designs and everything else. It seems like a through line from Danny Dimes to Brock Purdy to Trevor Lawrence this year. It's the coaches that acknowledge, all right, we got a young guy in here, and if you task his brain with too much, that's not going to be good. Is that basically the answer? Is simplify 1 or 2 reads, and if not, take off running, fella.
Yeah, I think that's what it's come down to, especially now, right, in crunch time. You don't want your quarterback to be overthinking or, I got to do this, and this. Like, no. Your job is to strictly find the open guy and get him the ball. Here goes to say we're going to run the similar concepts or same concepts at a different formation so your eyes are always in the same area and you can kind of get those repeat plays in. The other thing with the Jags, they've been able to run the football too, right? And we've always talked about this, how important running the football is for a quarterback because that's a play that he gets to rest. Or if you look at Josh Allen, for example, with the Buffalo Bills, he is the running game. So he doesn't get to rest. He doesn't get that play off where it's just like, all right, here, we're just going to hand the ball off and you don't have to think or do anything. Just do your little play fake, take a deep breath and go. No, he is the running game. So he's in 95% of the plays where the Jags have been able to run the ball consistently and efficiently. And they've had a guy that's been able to break some big runs down the stretch in Travis Etienne, which has allowed Trevor Lawrence to kind of take those breaks when need be, right? Where it's not always on his shoulders. And so I think more than anything, if you look at the Niners, even if you look at Jalen Hurts and the Eagles, they run the same concepts. They run the ball a ton. He's part of the running game, but they try to hand it off to Miles Sanders and other guys as many times as they can. Everyone's trying to find a way to be physical and eliminate your quarterback's exposure to defenses, right? Because defenses are switching up their coverage. It's not always man-to-man or cover 2. You'll see some cover 6. You'll see cover 4. You'll see bracket. Guys will start doing the zero blitzes we saw Miami do that got after Josh Allen, right? So you want to eliminate that exposure to your quarterback getting hit and that potential of him turning the ball over in the game.
Hey, Maurice, so this one's going to hurt a little bit, but the Jags have been a punching bag for the league for the last 27 years. For the last 27 years. So how do you feel this fan base have gotten behind this turnaround that the franchise is starting to make right now?
Well, there's a couple years we were winning. Like I said, I think you might have been in high school. Shek knows this.
I used to watch. I'm from Florida. I used to watch.
Yeah, we went up to Pittsburgh twice. Handed some a little bit, but that's neither here nor there. I think what do you say? You gotta, have you ever seen Shawshank Redemption?
Yeah.
You gotta crawl through 500 feet of stuff to come out clean on the other side. And that's what the Jags have been going through. Early when the Jags first got there, they were going to the playoffs every year with Tom Coughlin. I mean, I feel like they went like 5 or 6 years straight, AFC championship games, divisional rounds. They were rolling. You made a change because he couldn't get over the hump and get you to the Super Bowl. And then it kind of started going left a little bit. There's a couple years they went to the playoffs, but there wasn't consistency. I think with Doug Peterson, you're going to get that consistency. I think with Trent Baalke, he's done a great job of adding the right talent. You have Calvin Ridley coming back next year. And so the fan base, when you go through those hard times, when you start to see a winner, you start to see a young team believe, they show up. And to have 70,000 strong, and I don't know how, I think that's one of the bigger NFL stadiums too, is in Jacksonville.
It is.
To have 70,000 strong there at pregame, back-to-back weeks where the AFC title game against the Titans and against the Chargers, and then people are loving it. I mean, listen, my two boys are Jag fans to the fullest. My oldest one, all he does is get beat up by his friends on Instagram or whatever about how bad the Jags are, because everyone in this area, where I'm from the Bay Area, they're all Niner fans. So he's finally getting his get back, right? And so you take your lumps, you take your punches. You're right. We were the punching bag for a while, but guess what? Now it's time for us to start throwing them haymakers. And I think people are gonna start ducking because they're coming with a little bit more oomph. You know what I mean? And so it's exciting. And look, win, lose, or draw with the Jags, they're an exciting team to watch now. Before it used to be 4 yards, 2 yards in a cloud of dust. It was boring. You're seeing the high flying, the deep throws. If there are mistakes being made, whatever, you beat Dallas in Jacksonville 40-34. Those are the exciting games that you want to see if you want to kind of keep your fan base going.
If you said haymakers, not jabs, but you said haymakers. So what you saying haymakers, I need to hear from you. And I'm not trying to hear you throw stuff at the wall. I want to hear what you actually think. How you think the rest of these playoffs are going to go?
Listen, okay, so I think Cincinnati is going to roll the Bills. I'll tell you that. I thought before DeMar Hamlin got injured, it was starting to look that way on Monday night, and I think Cincinnati feels slighted because they lost that coin toss.
I agree, Maurice.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think Philly. I think Philly rolls the Giants. That was a beautiful Cinderella story. Brian Dable did a great job, but they just have that roster is the best roster in the National Football League. So I think Philly wins.
Better than the Niners. Better than the Niners.
Oh yeah, they. I mean, look, AJ Brown alone is tough. That's just tough to deal with. He beat the Niners last year in Tennessee by himself with Ryan Tannehill. So that's going to be a different. I think the Niners roll the Cowboys. I know everyone's all excited about them beating on Tom Brady and them old dudes down there in Tampa. I think the Niners roll. Now, this is the thing with Kansas City and the Jags, and I'll say this. That is the game where they lost. I think they lost to them by like a touchdown, maybe 10. I forget exactly what it was, but that's the game that turned this whole thing around, because they should have. They had a lot of missed opportunities in that game because Doug Peterson was so aggressive that they missed some field goals that they could have took. They had to take the momentum. I want to say it was some big hits in there. Like the Jags kind of set the tempo a little bit. If I'm being honest, I think the Chiefs win. I think it's going to be closer than what people think. But if they do allow the Jags to hang around, anything can happen. So that's just kind of my take on it.
Well, it's funny, Maurice, I'm a big proponent of the curse of supposed to. No one's supposed to win more than Mahomes and the Chiefs in Arrowhead against your Jags. And I'll tell you, you talk about, if there's a sort of a through line with the Jags, there was Maurice Jones-Drew and Fred Taylor and Natrone Means and ATN and all the rest of it. But it is those bangers on defense. There's some bad dudes that run through the 30 years or whatever it's been with these Jaguars. What piece? Was there a piece on defense? Was it through the draft? It's easy to boil it down to move Urban Meyer out, bring in Doug Peterson, and that's the reason for the turnaround. But are there individual pieces out on the field there that you point to as like that's the reason that the Jags were able to turn it around?
Well, I think you added Trayvon Walker, first overall pick. And there's some discussion. You could have got Aiden Hutchinson and this and that, but he fits what you want to do, right? He's a champion. He has that mindset. And even though he hasn't gotten to the quarterback as much as you want, he continues to get consistent pressure. He allows Josh Allen to get one-on-one. And then there's their interior guys as well that are there's probably like 4 to 5 of them that kind of get consistent pressure when they're passing. And then Lloyd, who can blitz. And then they went and revamped it through the draft, which I thought was important. And so to me, they added the right pieces to go out there and play. You added Darius Williams, who's going to start at corner for you, who won a Super Bowl with the Rams. So he has that knowledge of playing. So they added the right pieces defensively. And what it does is it allows guys to be in the right spot. It was kind of like when we used to always talk about, like when you add that one receiver and it puts everyone into their right spot, right? So you add Stephon Diggs to the Bills. Now Cole Beasley is a number 3 instead of a number 2. Gabe Davis goes from number 1 to number 2. And now all of a sudden Josh Allen has these great years, right? And so to me, that's kind of what they did on the defensive side. They added 2 or 3 pieces to shore up that front 7. They allowed the back end to stay and have that consistency and the camaraderie. And then the communication with all that. And they figured out Rashawn Jenkins is playing lights out. So they've added pieces, and those pieces will kind of come in and implement themselves into the system. And then all of a sudden, like, you have some leadership. You have some guys taking it personal. You have guys wanting to win, wanting to make the play. I mean, just again, the play against the Titans, Rashawn Jenkins comes off the edge. The offense was stinking. Comes off the edge, sacks the quarterback, ball shoots out. Josh Allen picks it up and runs it in for a touchdown. Like, they found ways to make plays, and that's what.
Fumble, but
hey, listen, I'm not gonna lie. I didn't think it was a fumble either, but the refs they did their part. They get paid too. So my dog scooped it up. But that's what it's all about. Like, I always tell people, you need a little bit of luck to win in this league, especially 100%. To try to go into the playoffs. It's something that has to bounce your way here or there. And for the Jags, the last couple of weeks, things have been bouncing their way.
Hey, I want to ask you something. I know this is so in Florida. Pretty much anything over Orlando, it's like not Florida. It's like
no
Georgia.
Question.
It's like Georgia.
South Georgia.
It's like South Georgia. So this is a very Atlanta thing to do, is to go to Waffle House, right? So Trevor Lawrence went to Waffle House to unwind after his first win in the playoffs. Is that like a Jacksonville thing?
Okay, so listen. Trevor Lawrence, a lot of people know in Jacksonville, there's not a lot open after 10 p.m.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The other establishments, those are for adults only. So I think for if anything, if you're looking at it and you're seeing it, Waffle House was the only place to go. Maybe Denny's, but I think they closed it. Other than that, it's like fast food joints. There's nothing else you can do. So unless you call a bar and tell them to stay open, then you're going to pay for it. So, he decided, hey, I'm going to go be one of the people, right? I'm going to be one of the people. I mean, I guess Waffle House is kind of like, what's the sandwich place in Pittsburgh that everyone goes to, Shek?
No, it's not the same.
Yeah.
It's not the same.
It's kind of like the same thing, man. Up there it is.
Oh, yeah, maybe. Yeah, you're right.
Just don't get that syrup in your hair, Trevor Lawrence. That could ruin your whole thing.
I ain't gonna lie. Waffle House is fire, though. I ain't gonna lie.
It's greasy,
not
though.
as good as from Primanti's, though. Come on, Shazier.
But that's greasy, too. They're both greasy food places.
I'm not going to lie. I'm in Pittsburgh, and this is a Pittsburgh take that they're not going to like. Waffle House is better than Primanti Brothers.
That's
sorry.
outrageous, and I may end the show early today. I don't love any of that. And
have you had Waffle House, Shek?
I've had Waffle House. I know.
Are you sure?
He didn't get
But you got it. But no, what did the cook look like when you went? That's all that matters. What did the cook look like?
What should he look like?
Special.
It's not supposed. It's supposed to be a she.
Okay. That was my first problem.
See, there you go. That's the problem.
I don't recall.
There you go.
Hey, Maurice. Yeah, listen, great times in Jacksonville. You got your guy, I think you and I agree on this, and a lot of people who are paying attention would agree with. It's not just having the real deal as your main man at the most important position. It's having him on his rookie deal. And now they have all sorts of speed on that front 7. The future, the present is bright. The future is bright. The next 3 years are bright. But while we have you, you mentioned one half with our guy JB Long doing a great job on the radio for the defending champion Rams there. What do you make of Sean McVay coming back in 2023? And does this herald the return of Aaron Donald as well?
Ecstatic, Shek. I was nervous. I'm not going to lie.
I thought
this
he was
a rough year. This was a rough year. This was rough. I want to say they lost a lineman the first 6 weeks. An offensive lineman went down. the first 12 weeks, it took 12 weeks until you had the same offensive line. So they played with 4 left tackles, 3 left guards, 2 centers, 2 right guards. The right tackle's the only one that played the whole season. You lost Cooper Kupp. Yeah, you lost Cooper Kupp. You lost Matthew Stafford. Cam Akers had a situation. It was a lot of it was just a lot going on. And I get it for Sean. He had a lot personally that was going on as well. But it's exciting to have him back. And I think they feel like, look, we were a couple games out of making a wild card spot with that roster. Imagine what we could do if we had all our guys to kind of come back and get in this thing. Now, they are going to have to revamp the O-line a little bit more. Those guys struggled when they were in there. They're going to need to run the ball a little bit more. I think Matthew Stafford is going to have to do more of this rollout offense instead of straight drop back stuff that they've been doing. But I'm excited. I think Aaron Donald comes back. You know, Jalen Ramsey played really well. I think PFF had him as a top cornerback. So they have pieces there. I'm at the end of the day, it's, you know, I think they're a year away from, I think last year they were a year away from being a year away again. So I think this is the year they run it back one more time for everybody to see.
I think, me personally, I know you guys want draft capital. So I think, you know, if you trade Aaron to Pittsburgh for a second round, you know, I think that would be a perfect. I think that would be a perfect pick.
Listen, they will never trade Aaron Donald.
No, I know that. I know that.
You know what's crazy? Because normally, like, you would think like, oh, they would never trade Peyton Manning ever. Like, and then they let him go and he goes to Denver and he like no. When I tell you, there are people in this building are like, Aaron, he will be here forever. If he wants to keep playing, we'll keep. I mean, and granted, he got a nice.
Yeah, he works it.
Oh, he even when he was out there and guys were beat up, he was playing the run unbelievable. Like normally, like again, we all know this. And granted, I'll say Pittsburgh's different because, and Ryan, your locker room's a little bit different because you guys are held to a certain standard, and you know, it's because I remember going in there as a rookie, on my rookie draft, like the little thing, you know, the pre-draft visits. And I remember going in there and seeing like Joey Porter and Ike Taylor, all these guys in there lifting, and you know, they're all like, it's not like that everywhere else, right? Where guys play hard all the time. Like guys will shut it. We've seen it, Shek. Guys will shut it down on you. Well, that same mindset that Pittsburgh had, they have that in LA too. And so when Aaron got hurt this year, it was like, look, that may be for the best, because if he would have kept playing, he could have gotten more injured, right? So we're going to shut him down as we did everyone else, and we'll run it back. So, and then plus you guys got my dog Larry Ogunjobi. You guys got Cam Hayward. Y'all don't need nobody else. You got too much going on over there. Right. Offense is getting better. I mean, you guys are fine.
He's a Pittsburgh kid. You know, he wanted to play for
He
the
lives
hometown.
in Pittsburgh, too. He loves Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I know.
I was like, bro,
he's a friend of mine. He's a good friend.
Yeah, I'm like, bro, you could be in L.A. or Pittsburgh, or you go back to Pittsburgh? Like, loves Pittsburgh. So funny.
Yeah, that's where he's from.
Maurice is the best. You just heard why there. I'm happy for your boys. The elder boy. This is the best thing, Shazier. At the height of Maurice Jones-Drew's brilliant career, Hall of Fame border career, his son's favorite player on the Jags was Josh Scobie, the kicker.
Hey, and then y'all traded him to us, and he did terrible.
He stunk.
He did terrible because he left his family in Florida. He's a family guy. They should. Right. I told Shek that. I said, hey, you got to make sure everyone comes up, otherwise he doesn't do well. But hey.
He's good at golf, though.
That was bad. Scobie coming to Pittsburgh was bad. Maurice Jones-Drew coming on. Don't call it a comeback. Great banner even. Thanks so much, Maurice. Make sure you're checking him out. Well, you know, NFL Network. He's all over the place year-round, flapping his gums about pigskin. You're going to be calling the Super Bowl on the radio in the UK. Or you won't be in the UK. People in the UK will hear Maurice's voice there. Either way, we appreciate hearing your voice and seeing your face today.
That was good to see you, Shek, man. I can't wait. We got to get together when I get back down to LA, man.
Can't wait.
Don't call it a comeback.
Okay, 5-0, it's time for some other comeback stories in the news we need to give a look to this week. This is the Check Down. The Buccaneers lost to the Cowboys in embarrassing fashion on Monday night. Tom Brady, for as good as he's looked for the past 2 decades, looked plumb awful. Shazier, will Tom Brady come back next season, or more importantly, should he?
I'm going to be honest. Nowadays, I don't even know what I should think when it comes to Tom Brady. Because when you expect him to retire, he stays. When you expect him to stay, he retires. And to me, especially what's going on with his personal life, I think right now, I think that Tom just is still trying to figure out what he's going to do. So when it comes to, as an NFL fan, I would love for Tom Brady to continue to stay into the league because you get to watch greatness. And the thing is, we don't know the next time we'll see another guy like Tom Brady. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes, we have all these young quarterbacks, but we don't know if any of them will end up being a Tom Brady, somebody that has 7 Super Bowls, somebody that has the most passing yards ever in all these championships, all these touchdowns. So it would be lovely to just continue to watch him play. But for someone to see the game continue to grow, I think, it might be time for Tom to step aside and let all the young guys to prove what they can do and start winning their championships too. So as for me, I hated playing against him, but it's always fun to watch. And to me, I think the only reason that Tom will come back is that if he has the weapons, if he has an O-line, if he has a receiving core, if he has an offensive coordinator that he could talk to about, hey, this is what I like to run, this is what you like to run, and then has a defense that can sustain it. So it's only a few teams that Tom could possibly go to. A 49ers is one of them. A Jets is probably another one. But teams that are already have all the pieces in place, the only thing they need left is a quarterback. So I think that's the only way Tom comes back.
Yeah, it's all of a sudden feels like, yeah, he's a great finishing piece for a would-be contender, and there are a number of examples out there where you could transition from 1 year to a longer-term option in 2024. The question is now, if he looks like he did against Dallas, is there really a team that wants him as their starting quarterback even for one season? Sad to say. He stiff-armed Father Time as well as anybody in sports history, but Father Time is going to win in the end one way or the other. Boy, it's amazing the reality of pro football these days. If you don't go all the way, it almost certainly indicates that major changes are going to go down. That's what's going on with the Chargers. We already dug in on the Jags. Let's talk about the loser of that game. How do Herbert and Staley come back from what's a pretty woeful loss? They've already shown the door to the offensive coordinator and the QB coach. What else can they do?
Yeah, with the Chargers, man, their offense just played a terrible game in the second half. They were very, very conservative. The coach was, he's one of the most aggressive coaches in the NFL. And one thing that he decided to do in the second half of this game was, it seemed like he was coaching scared, coaching conservative, and he was more worried about his job. And you can kind of see that with the play calling. But I think it's a good idea that they decided to switch on the OC and the quarterbacks coach, because Justin Herbert is one of those quarterbacks that people say is a generational talent, that people say that is a possible top 5 quarterback, that most guys would draft right now, if they were to redo their draft, top 3, and to me, I think if you really want that quarterback to be that type of guy, you need to have the pieces around them. And I don't feel that they have the pieces around him when it comes to the coaching. The play calling is very predictable, is very consistent. And after a while, defenses catch up on that type of stuff. And I understand they jumped out with a 27-point lead, but at the end of the day, for them to be what they need to be, they need the coaching around Justin Herbert.
Completely get everything you just said about the Chargers offense, but that's Staley's defense out there, and he had Mack and Bosa and James and Kenneth Murray healthy out there. That was a stinker of a 30-minute stretch there with the season hanging in the balance in Duval. Meantime, just as you predicted last week, and I predicted it too, the Vikings ran out of comeback luck in the wild card round against the Giants. Shazier, with the Giants earning unlikely playoff wins and the Jets surrounded with surprisingly good vibes, is winning football making a comeback in the Big Apple?
It might be. It might be. The one thing that I really like about what's going on in New York is that both of those are big market teams. Obviously, the Jets, their fans are fair weather, but they still are loyal. And New York, is the Giants. I think that football is always good when you have a team like the big teams in the NFC East have doing well in football. And I really like to see it. And I like what's going on in New York. They have two coaches. One is more offensive based, one is more defensive based, and you see what's going on there. So I think the Jets, all they need to do is make sure that their quarterback situation is taken care of, because they have two phenomenal young offensive talents with Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson. Then they still have Elijah Moore. They still have Corey Davis. But on the other side of the ball with the Jets, their defense is phenomenal. So when it comes to the Giants, on the offensive side of the ball, everybody was questioning Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones put up 300, a few touchdowns, and a rushing touchdown. So he proved that he could be the guy. And I think their offense, as long as it can stay moving in a consistent level, if their defense can keep up with it, I think it's going to be really exciting in New York for the next few years.
What's interesting about the Jets, and of all teams, it's the New York Jets. When big-name QBs come available via trade or free agency, a lot of teams jump in and chase that person. I think the Jets are in a position of luxury. There could be some big brand-name guys, Brady, Rodgers, Derek Carr, all competing or trying to get in the door to meet with Saleh and beyond and see if they can get that starting gig at some point when free agency gets rolling here. That's a juicy spot to drop yourself into at the most important position.
To me, I think Derek Carr will probably be the best fit there. Derek Carr, or I know a lot of people might not be a big fan of him, or a guy like Jimmy G, because Jimmy G is a winner. He might not be out there shredding the ball over the field, but he understands how to win. He's a game manager, and all he has to do is put his team in position to make sure they don't lose. His defense always put him in his positions to win. If he can just give Garrett Wilson the ball in the right times, hand it off to Breece Hall, or Derek Carr, I think that the Jets can turn into a serious contender with one of those two quarterbacks.
I don't disagree. Watch Aaron Rodgers. He could follow exactly in the footsteps of his predecessor and put on that green jersey for New York after he takes off the green one from Green Bay. The Last of Us is making a comeback, but not as a video game. Now it's a TV show. Shazier, what's the next video game you want to see adapted into a show or a movie?
That's a good one. That's a good one. I would love to see Grand Theft Auto adapted into a movie, but that game is so wild. I don't even think they can make a movie out of it. What is another game? A game that I think will be a good movie, and PlayStation does a really good job of this, is probably God of War. I think that it just has great storytelling. It's a great gameplay, and it just talks about, how the character, his family passed away, got killed off, and then now he went to go fight the God of War. So I think that'll be a great movie. It'll be more of a fictional movie. I think that'll be a great movie. And then
what about Dig Dug? Remember that? Like the little guy pumps up the bad guys and they explode under subterranean style, maybe or Joust, like the heroes that get on the back of what were those things? Ostriches. You remember those games? No? You don't remember that?
No, I'm going to be honest. I don't know what you're talking about right now.
Okay. Sega NHL 94. I guess that's already been turned into a documentary that unfolds before our eyes during the NHL regular season. All right, we'll figure it out, Shazier. Mac McClung is set to become the first G Leaguer to participate in the dunk contest this season. Shazier, how does the NBA return the dunk contest to its former glory?
The thing is, the dunk contest is always exciting when there's people that you know. So one thing that's been going on a lot is that there's a lot of guys that people don't know that's been dunking in the dunk contest, or it's like rising stars. And, that's exciting. But if you see LeBron, obviously LeBron's older now, but if you see a LeBron or a Zion Williamson or a Jason Tatum, and Jason Tatum doesn't really have I don't know if he really have the dunks in his repertoire. He will dunk on you, but he's not really like a flashy dunker. If you start to get those guys, like the guys that everybody loved to see in the dunk contest, I think that can bring it a little bit back to the glory. But you have to make it exciting. There's a lot of dunks that are really basic dunks that people are seeing. And we've seen so many fantastic dunks through our lifetime, and now it's all on repeat. So it's kind of hard to prove that you're the best dunker in the world when you do the dunk that somebody just did 2 years ago, so.
That's true, but I think what you said at the very top there is the thing that's most accurate. It used to be Michael Jordan versus Dominique Wilkins. Now it's guys who dunk good. I mean, a lot of guys just take the night off rather than competing. If you could get the best players in the game back involved in it, that would be a real boon for All-Star Weekend at the NBA. Either way, that's it for this episode of Don't Call It a Comeback. And by the way, again, you may have noticed a giant billboard in Times Square promoting the show a couple weeks back. We keep asking you to see it. If you do notice that billboard is up there making a comeback once again, take a snapshot of it and tweet it over to me and Shazier, and we'll be sure to shout you out on the show at our earliest convenience.
And then also, make sure to follow, rate, and review the show on wherever you listen to the podcast, and check us out on YouTube on the Wondery channel. And make sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss an episode. See you all next week.
Don't call it a comeback. I've been waiting on this moment my whole life. Can't call it a comeback. Everybody to your feet, make arenas rise. Yeah, I'm saying from the left to right, we get it on tonight. We do it all, but we don't back down. Just give me one shot, one chance, I'ma take it. Fixing up the game, but these records I keep on breaking.